Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. This year, to celebrate, I want to take a look at how some of the mothers in the Bible are portrayed. The fifth commandment tells us to honor thy mother, as does Proverbs 31:31. So let's see how the Bible holds up. First, there's Eve, the mother of all humanity. But she's also the reason for sin in all humans, which justifies why we should all be tortured for eternity in hell. So not a very honorable portrayal of a mother there. Maybe Hagar is treated better. Let's see. She's a slave who becomes pregnant against her will. Then when Sarah, Abraham's actual wife, finally has a kid, Hagar and her newborn are kicked out in the desert to try to make it on their own. Okay, that one's not great. That's not great. Oh, what about Rebecca, the mother of Jacob and Esau? Well, her character basically comes off as a conniving jerk who screws over her firstborn son and just makes her kids hate each other their whole lives. So I'm kind of seeing a pattern here. Huh. Oh, I've got Lot's wife. Well, she's a mother who doesn't even get a name in the Bible. And really, her only role is to sit by as her daughters are offered to a crowd, and then she gets turned into a pillar of salt. So let me tell you that despite the command in the Bible to honor your mother, it seems pretty clear that the Bible doesn't meet up to this standard. In fact, the Bible seems to treat all the mothers it even bothers to talk about pretty crappy. Yet again, just another example of the Bible failing to meet its own standards. But if you think I got something wrong, you know what to do. Give us a call because the show is starting right now. Welcome, everyone. Today is May 12th, 2024, and another happy Mother's Day to you all out there. I am your host, Secular Rarity, and joining me today is the always amazing Forrest Valkai. What is up, brother?
I didn't have my microphone turned on. I'm that good. I'm not happy. I was over here wiggling about, making noise, and I didn't want to disturb your intro because it was real good. And so I'm great, man. How are you?
I am excited. I am always happy to be here with you, man. You are always so much fun, and you bring such great energy and such great knowledge. And you know, I wanted to give some of our audience some of just a taste, just a little snippet of that knowledge, because you know today is Mother's Day, right? And you know, something that is so fascinating, I think, is how different mothers throughout the animal kingdom, because that's all we humans are at the end of the day, are just animals, right?
Absolutely.
And a lot of different mothers out there in the animal kingdom have some pretty interesting ways of giving birth, of having these, you know, children. And I was just wondering, are there really any interesting ones that stick out to you? Some fun ones that you could tell our audience about. Just give them, again, just a little bit of taste of motherhood throughout the beautiful spectrum of life out there.
You know what? I wish like if we had talked about this earlier, I would have prepared like a whole slideshow. But like just thinking about it, I think people don't appreciate tapeworms enough. I think they're awesome. So tapeworms, they cestodes, they have this little funky head with the suction cups and hooks and teeth and stuff, and they latch onto the inside of your intestines. And then they're segmented. They have all these little segments, and each of those little segments is called a proglottid. And each proglottid is a full, completely hermaphroditic reproductive organ in and of itself. And so if you have this 40-foot tapeworm living in your gut, every single one of those little segments could produce like thousands of eggs a day. And so you have this whole worm cranking out like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of eggs all the time, any one of which flushes down into the waterway, gets into the mouth of any fish or whatever like that, somehow gets into a human. Like, you could be the mother to so many worms and not even know it. And like, that to me is what it's all about. I'm not a mother, and I don't intend to be, but honestly, like, I think that would be the coolest way to just really, just let the world feel the love of Mother's Day. Just worms worming about through everybody's intestines. I think people don't appreciate the horrible things in life enough, and that's one of them.
I have no idea how many people out there are enjoying this as much as I am, but I'm just freaking loving it. I think that is the perfect way to say Happy Mother's Day to everybody out there. You know, just think about the millions and millions of worms. Mothers
like swarms of things.
Yeah, that's
great.
Right. Oh my gosh. Well, before they completely kick us off and decide never to bring us back, I need to tell you that the Atheist Experience is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government, and sometimes the discussion of worm motherhood. So that's not an all the time.
If you didn't enjoy wriggling masses, you wouldn't have been a parent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I'm going to shamelessly self-promote and throw put in the chat there a video from my channel where I rank my favorite parasites, and you better believe tapeworms are on there.
Yes. And there's some other really, like the wasps that, inject their eggs into living creatures and stuff. And,
they paralyze a tarantula,
right,
so its heart's still beating while its babies hatch inside of it, so it's fresh meat.
It's intense. It's intense. And honestly, like human motherhood is also intense. Like, let's not shy away from it.
It's genuinely horrific.
Absolutely, yes.
I will not be partaking. But hey, it's you and I were parasites once too in that way.
Yep,
Isn't that sweet?
I love that.
It's
and
all.
Mom,
it's all about.
You.
Yes. It's all about leeching off of someone's nutrients against their will. That's what it's all about. Sharing a blood supply by your volition and maybe not somebody else's. That's love.
Yeah.
That's what love is.
I like that. I think that's a beautiful and wholesome way to start. If we have... Are we back? Is my mic back?
You are back. I was just smiling like an asshole, hoping that I was the only one with sound issues, trying to figure out what was going on.
No, that's okay. I also had some too. I was just saying, if we have any viewers that have stuck with us still to this point, thank you. But if you don't call in, we might just keep talking about parasites. So that's up to you.
I have a whole other thing. We haven't even gotten to high-dadded cysts. While we're on tapeworms, allow me to freak you out further. We'll keep on it. So have somebody call in and talk about God's beautiful, perfect design so I can explain what a high-dadded cyst is and how you get it out of your brain.
You heard it, folks. You heard it. You think this beautiful nature, perfect design shit makes sense? You know who to call. But before we grab some of these wonderful calls that are already filling up in our queue, and we are excited for you, we have to give you last week's results of the Share Your Experience question of the week. So last week we asked, how did God the Father get out of paying child support? Okay. So number 3, Cursed Kennedy says the God character got out of paying child support by letting Joseph, Mary's husband, believe he was the father for 18 years. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's pretty brutal there. Yeah, man. That's not cool, God. That's not cool, man. Number 2, we've got QC saying how the biblical God got out of child support, paid off Maury to say, God, you are not the father. Man, yeah, seriously, some intense words right there, which I'm not going to go down it. I was about to go into this like long diatribe about that show, and I'm just not going to do it. It's not worth it, guys. It's not worth it. Number 1, T800 Phantasm 2 said God got out of paying child support by saying 3 nails should be enough to support anyone for the rest of their life. Damn. That one was
fun, bro.
Yeah, that was bad. That one was
cold-blooded.
Yes,
cold-blooded. I love
seriously, man. Yeah. I'd say you're going to hell, but so am I. So whatever. The
prompt for part 2.
Yeah, right. Yeah, seriously. The prompt for this week. What is a good comeback for you need Jesus? Something I've definitely heard a lot. Forrest, what's a good comeback for somebody who says to you, you need Jesus?
and you need to read another book. There's more than one out there.
Yeah,
and I guarantee there's better characters in them.
Yeah, right. You need Jesus. You need a hobby, like
seriously,
anything else to do with your time. But I know our wonderful audience is going to come up with some great answers, and you already know the drill. It's pretty simple. You get your answers in the comment section below this video, and then you tune in next week at the beginning of the episode, and your comment might be read. It just might be. It might also not be. I feel like we should mention that too, just in case anybody was
at the same. It's at the same level of prayer. Right. It might be read. It might not be read. It might just happen later. You know what I mean?
It's not this week is not the time that your comment gets read. You know, and there's a reason. We have higher
with our plan, our design, our divine plan. We know all. Your comment wasn't ready yet.
That's right. Don't question the ACA producers. But
lest ye be banned, suffer the wrath.
Right.
Send you to the shadow realm.
Well, we have some good calls, man. I am excited.
Yes.
So we've got Kevin in Georgia. He, him pronouns, wants to talk to us about God's existence. Well, Kevin, that is what we are freaking here for, buddy. So what is up? You are on the Atheist Experience with SR and Forrest Valkai.
Hello.
What's up, guys? Forrest, I called a show maybe a week ago, and I just didn't feel hammered down. It felt a little rushed. I don't think I really got to talk to you. So if this conversation sounds familiar, I apologize. But I didn't feel fulfilled in what I was told. So just jump right into it.
I don't remember any of it, so we'll start from scratch because I am too.
Okay, that's fine. I like the intelligent design argument that gets brought up a lot. One thing that I've heard said, which makes perfect sense, is like, if I said, you know, who made that car? Did that Lexus just come about? I can go to YouTube and I can type in how to make a Lexus, and you can see that Lexus being made. And that kind of confirms that. And I could do that with pretty much anything I see, light poles and, you know, forks, whatever. But, you know, when we talk about the universe or space or things like that, you can't. There's no tutorial. Could you tell me why I'm incorrect for being annoyed with not at least having the premise of, okay, I'm going to be honest and say, I feel like it makes sense to start with the premise that I do believe there is an intelligent designer, only because, not who he is or what he's called, but only because I might not have that YouTube video like I can with the Ford, with the Toyota, but I don't know anything that becomes a thing. It's pretty funny. You said on one of the shows, what's the thing that makes the thing? And I was laughing. That was funny. But I guess what I'm saying is I don't know the thing that makes the biggest thing, but I have so many examples of things being made by people or people smarter or greater. So why is it like incorrect to at least have the premise of, I'm not going to 100% say that a God exists, but if you had to put a gun to my head, I'm like, yeah, probably. Like, why is that premise incorrect?
Do you want to go first? Because I've got like 4 different things.
No, please go wherever, man, and then I'll tack on at the end. Yeah.
Okay. So the first thing is that the reason why this is problematic is that we don't have. So the reason why we can say that I know this Lexus was designed by human beings and this other thing wasn't, like say a rock or you know, a tree or whatever like this, is because we can draw that comparison between something that's natural and something that's artificial, I'll say, for lack of a better word right now. If you're coming into this conversation, however, trying to say that all of the universe and all life and all these things were all designed by God, then you don't have anything else to compare that to. So I don't know how you're making that assessment. You can't say this is clearly a thing that's divinely created, and here's another thing that isn't, because you don't have the second thing that isn't. So that's number one. Number two is that I don't, even if we didn't know anything about how planets or stars or life or new organisms or anything else formed, even if we didn't know anything, I don't know isn't the same as magic. And so, like, back in the day, we used to say we didn't know where lightning came from. We didn't know where earthquakes came from. We didn't know where rainbows came from. And so there are lots of gods out there that were responsible for that for a long time, until we figured out where those things came from and we realized that a god isn't necessary. So even if we didn't know anything, if we didn't know where life happened or how planets and stars were completely ignorant to the universe around us, there's no reason to then say, okay, well then therefore there's a supernatural realm outside of space and time where then there's a guy and he lives there and that guy did the things and also that guy really cares about like whether or not I masturbate and all these other things that go along with it. There's no reason to do all that. Third thing, even if you did have a good reason to believe in some guy that lives in these places, that's not the only ask. So like, we're talking about planets forming or life forming or evolution or whatever. It's not just one thing. It's 50,000 things we're talking about, all sorts of different models and theories and parts of science all come together with this emergent property of the creation, the formation of these different things. And so when you're talking about this, even if I was a theist and I was like, okay, there's a guy. Okay, now you need to show that the guy can create these things. Then you need to show that the guy did create these things. Then I'm going to have questions about how the guy created these things. Like this, these are all independent miracles, all independent events that need to be checked and verified and questioned. And then the fourth and probably the most important thing is that we do know where these things come from, more or less. We don't have all the parts all together quite yet, but like we know how gravity works. We know how accretion disks work. We know how nuclear fusion works and how the proton-proton chain works and how stellar nuclear synthesis works. We know how like major chunks of abiogenesis. We haven't been able to make new life in a jar yet, but we know how you could do it if you had enough time. We're learning more and more about these things every day, and not only do we know like the stuff that makes things like life, we know the stuff that makes the stuff that makes things like life, and we know that those things all have natural origins. They all are made by themselves in nature. Even like the really complicated shit very clearly self-assembles, and we've not only seen that in laboratory settings, we find these complex molecules in space quite frequently, and there's nobody up there tampering with the knobs and contaminating the vials. That's just shit that can happen. And so when you ask why is it impractical or unreasonable to start from the assumption there's a God, it's because you don't have a reason to believe that there is a God in the first place. If there is a God, you don't have a reason to believe that he did anything. Not knowing a thing isn't a reason to believe that there's some magical divine property about it. And you do actually have an answer that doesn't require a God. So there's 4 different reasons. And altogether makes kind of a big argument for like not just jumping to magical conclusions, which you wouldn't do and shouldn't do for anything else either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what do you think on all that, Kevin? I know it was a lot, but we'll give you a little bit of time.
No. I'll definitely concede that you jump in a lot of pieces on the chessboard to say checkmate before you've even done the. Forrest was saying there's so many parts that come from the very start, from what I said to what would get him to, oh yeah, I agree. Like you said, there's so many miracles and different things that would have to take place. So I agree with that. I'll definitely concede that why you can't just go from 1 to 10 that fast. I guess the last thing that I would say, and I don't know if Forrest you want to respond or maybe SR would respond, but when I use that word practical, I guess I'm getting at if I took out a sheet of paper, and I guess this goes back to the thing that makes the thing like what you were talking about. When I take out a sheet of paper and I wrote down all those things I could fortunately look up on a YouTube video, because if YouTube or social media didn't exist and I saw Alexis and I couldn't, maybe the guy that built it was dead in this weird example I'm giving, and I couldn't necessarily just look up a video. If I could write down all the things on the left sheet of paper of was that made by someone, I've got millions and billions of things And then on the other side, you say, okay, universe, stars, and all those little things that make gases and stuff like that. I respect, I don't know. I'm cool with that. Back to the part that what I get annoyed by is, okay, I'm okay with I don't know. But if I say, I'm gonna go out on a whim and say, yeah, somebody made that too. I feel like that only comes from a place of I've got so many other things on this left sheet of paper. With this one thing, I have a hard time saying no. I don't know. I'm cool with I don't know. But to say no is like, well, but I've got a billion other things on the left side of the sheet of paper. Does that make sense?
You kind of, but in fairness, Kevin, you do say no to certain things, yeah? Like on that, like the answer to all that stuff that you don't have those YouTube videos for, like it's not Thor, right? Like you're pretty confident on that. It's probably something more in the style of this, European, Jesus-y son of, the almighty thing, right? Like maybe it's a bit more vague. Maybe it's, not exactly the same guy who drowned all the babies in Noah's time, but like it's probably something in that vein. And you probably feel pretty confident about saying like it's definitely not Zeus, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Right.
There are certain constructions of a deity, right, that we just can comfortably rule out. There are others that, yeah, we would still be taking a leap, right? We wouldn't exactly be following that logical syllogism correctly there, okay? But then the question would come up, exactly what Forrest was just saying, of like, yeah, but what is your reason for then saying that? You're right. Like technically there's not something already, some glaring red flag that's like, can't be that guy, can't be that version. But then you have to ask the next question, which is, okay, what is it that leads me to accept this? And it kind of seems like you're already in the boat of saying, I don't really have anything there, man, which is fine, which is totally cool. Forrest and I aren't here to say that, that vague, nondescript version of a deity definitely doesn't exist. But like the God of the Bible seems to definitely not be the one, because there's contradictory things when it comes to the world we see around us. And so it's okay to rule that one out.
Okay, so I guess the only thing left for me to say is I don't have a problem with the perspective you guys are coming from as far as not having the good reason or the good evidence to support that. And I will be the first one to admit that from just my own premise, I do make that decision that the God that I believe in is real. Yeah. Do I feel like I have evidence that is enough for me, and that doesn't mean it has to be enough for you? Yes. Do I feel like we should make a periodic table off of it? No. We don't do that with things we actually do live every day by our life with. I'm cool with that. I guess the center of what I was getting at was I feel like the standard changes based on the conversation we're having. And I've heard a lot of times, well, yeah, if it's extraordinary, it has to. I guess so, but I just feel like if we live our lives every day using that standard, are we not creating our own bias when we change that standard just because the subject is different? That's all.
What standard? Maybe I'm not following. No, please go ahead, Forrest. If you were following fully.
Yeah, no, I think that what Elliot just laid out to you was the standard that you are changing. The reason why you don't believe that the universe was whipped up out of cotton candy by universe creating pixies is the exact same reason that we don't believe in your God. We're not saying, if I give the common example, if I tell you there's an elephant on the other side of the wall behind me here, you can say, yes, there absolutely is, or no, there absolutely isn't. And both of those would require evidence. Or you can just say, I don't believe you. I don't have a reason to believe that exists. Until you give me a reason, until you give me evidence, I am not going to assume that you're telling me the truth, and I'm going to move on with my life as if that isn't real, because it probably isn't. And it's the same thing that we're doing for this God here. the reason you don't believe in Zeus and Thor and whatever other Quetzalcoatl and all these other deities on offer, and also whatever cryptids and bizarre other things that are also equally unfalsifiable and silly, is the exact same reason we don't believe in your God. There's just no reason to, and you kind of just dismiss it out of hand without really thinking about it. And you'd need a damn good reason to change your mind on that. You said a second ago, you suppose, you guess extraordinary things require extraordinary evidence. I don't think that should be a kind of like, oh, well, whatever, like that. If I tell you I bought a pizza last night, you can probably take my word for it. If you really wanted to check, I can give you a receipt. But if I tell you that I can, fly to the moon with my farts, you better ask for more evidence for that before you just say, well, I guess I don't have a reason not to believe it, and people don't go to the moon. So like, maybe, I guess it's an option. Like, just, no, you would never do that. So when it comes to your God, like, we're paying it the same amount of dignity and respect that you pay to every other supernatural claim all the time without thinking it, which is none. And until you have a reason to give us that this God is real or worthy of our consideration, or better yet, our worship, then like, we're not going to play the game. We're not going to participate in it. And we're going to continue looking for naturalistic explanations and assuming that there is a naturalistic explanation, because every single thing in the entire universe thus far has had a naturalistic explanation. And we have absolutely zero evidence and zero incidents of anything supernatural ever happening ever.
And you mentioned practicality, like you mentioned the pragmatism of it all, Kevin. And I would just argue what Forrest just laid out is the most practical. It is the one that is the most pragmatic, yes. Because otherwise you can't get out of bed in the morning because you're so overwhelmed believing that the floor is actually lava and that oxygen will kill you because, Bigfoot farted and that is poisonous to humans, and pixies are gonna, steal your underwear and make profits, and I mean all kinds of crazy shit, right? Like, yep. If your standard is that low, where you really are just like kind of just accepting it because somebody told it to you, then ultimately you're going to find yourself believing all of these really problematic things that could harm you, could harm others, and at the very least are just contradictory with themselves. And that's a problem because both of those things couldn't be true. And yet here you are going, yeah, they sure are. They are absolutely freaking true and real. And so ultimately at the end of the day, this system that Forrest and I are talking about, this standard, it is what we're all using. Like when my car doesn't start, like, or you walk out, and you find you have a flat tire, Kevin, like you don't think dinosaurs, you don't think unicorns, like you think, oh my gosh, maybe there was a leak, or maybe the starter's not working, or shit, I forgot to get gas yesterday, which actually I'm now just realizing I did forget to get gas. So I will need to do that tomorrow. But
you didn't pray hard enough.
That's the problem, right? But are you following along with us, Kevin? I know we've said a lot.
Yes, y'all have already given me enough time. If I could say one more thing, and I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm laughing. But the last, I'm kind of a sport meathead, so excuse my analogy, okay? This is the last thing that I wanted to say. But just the avenue that I was going down is when I talk to a parent sometimes, and they'll say, "My kid, they want to be a professional swimmer or MLB player," and I'm like, okay, so what does he do like on a normal basis? Oh, well, he plays Fortnite, he sits in the house, and he plays Overwatch and doesn't go outside, and the sun doesn't touch him, and he eats all kind of fast food and junk food, and I'm just like, okay,
probably not on the right path for that.
That's not gonna happen, but I can't tell her that with absolute certainty. I've just never seen somebody make it living like that. So I guess that's the only avenue I was going down. I understand how that doesn't mean you should agree with me. When I was saying practical, I'm saying I think it's practical to tell that mom, yeah, that's just not gonna work, ma'am. But I'm not God. You don't know the end all be all. I know that, but I've just got a long laundry list of other kids here that don't do those things and they end up where you're talking about. So
you've got actual data and repeatable, testable evidence that you can go point to say, most likely the case is Mr. or Mrs. Smith. This kid on the trajectory, not going to get there, you know? But that's what we don't have with God. That's what we don't have. Because every single time we want to go pull up the study, every single time we want to look at the percentages, apparently we just don't seem to have anything on the paper. And that's the problem, because then we're just believing stuff just for the sake of believing it. But Kevin, I really think this was, I really, really think this was a phenomenal call, man. I hope you also enjoyed it, and I hope you give us a call back. Cause yeah, this is the type of discussion I want to have, where we're just being honest and we're just laying it all out there. And, you know, there's no reason for us to call each other names or have some gotcha moment or anything. This was just, it was a good, honest discussion, man. And I think, you know, as long as we keep approaching this, wanting that type of truth, I think all three of us are going to keep getting more and more of it, man. So thank you so much, Kevin. I really do appreciate that. That was a good call to start off on, man.
Yeah,
like
I hope Kevin calls back with more stuff, because I'd like to know like why. He seems like a reasonable enough guy, and like he seems to be willing to listen to what we're coming from, and he's not you know, being a jerk. He let us speak for a long time, which was very charitable. I would love to hear more from him about, like, you know, why he actually does believe in what he believes, because I think we're finding some common ground on why you shouldn't have that as the default position. You know, what else is going on there then? You know, like what is this a cultural thing? Is this just something you grew up with? Is this just easier? Are you afraid to challenge it and you're worried about hell? Like there's a million different excuses we get from people who are otherwise very reasonable, good folks, who still hold on to their theistic beliefs. And I want to hear Kevin's, man.
Yeah, I totally
so Kevin,
agree
if you're
with
still
you.
watching this, call back sometime, dude. We'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, seriously. And I love that moment and this is one of the big reasons I'm such a fan of Erica Gutsick Gibbon and like Creation Myths Dan and Dapper Dino and stuff. Like I love because and Jackson Weed as well. I don't know why I left him off, but all of those people really, really focus on the science. They really, really focus on the data. And when the person comes back and says, you know what, I just believe. They go, cool, great, no problem.
Okay.
Like, nah, that's
Thank
actually
you for being honest about
no
that.
worries. No worries whatsoever. Like, have your beliefs, no problem. If you want to have a totally separate discussion about those beliefs, that's fine. We can do that. But all we were doing was addressing the fact that you said there's no evidence for evolution. You said we've never seen speciation happen in real life. And we're just telling you, we absolutely do have all that shit. It absolutely is right here. If you want to then go on and say, okay, fine. All right, I accept it. I still believe in God. Yeah, cool. Totally different discussion. No worries. Let's have it. And I think that's a really powerful place for believers to find themselves. I will say, and this is just personal anecdote. I know the plural, not data. I get it. But for me and my story, when I got to that place of just going, yeah, actually, the reason I believe this is just because I fucking already believe it. It has nothing to do with the history. It doesn't have anything. That was a real big step in the stepping away. So, you know, not trying, just letting people know, you know, just saying, growing our numbers here in the atheism corners. Just kidding.
No, it was the same thing for me. Like the second, you know, the moment I started applying the same rules of like logic and reason and morality to my belief system as a child that I did to literally anything else ever, immediately it fell apart. And like I think that's so important for people to hear, because like that one of the things that made people like, you know, Christopher Hitchens so effective is that he didn't pull any punches, and he was saying, like, he was calling out this religion for what it was. He was calling these beliefs what they were. He was taking it in the context that he was hearing it and explaining it. And so many people were, and to this day, so many people are like, you're not allowed to say anything negative about this. It's a religion. And it's like, yeah, but there's a lot of negative things to say. And we're not just here saying, oh, I don't believe it because here's the evidence. Actually, if you sit down and think about this, it's horrific. And there's not a reason to believe it, but that goes beyond just like the you know, whatever you were saying, that like, oh, I kind of just grew up in it, so whatever. Like, actually, if you dig into it, you'll find it is less than not worthy. It's not only worth your time, it's not worth your humanity. It's beneath you to live in this way. Just, I don't know, man. I could go on and on about like the positive feelings I have about the progress of atheism over the past couple of decades.
Me too, man. And I think he said it super well. At best, it is unproven and, you know, not really that helpful. And at worst, it is actively harmful and just outright false, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why we do this.
I'd like to give a shout out to the several people in chat who have already had to be like timed out for the day because they're there to preach and tell us that God is real. The phone number is on the screen.
Is it? Oh my gosh.
What gets me is like, it's not just that, you know, you have the opportunity to call in and say something really compelling about your God. And even if you believe that we too are just stubborn atheists who will not have our minds changed, you have an audience of thousands of people who are going to see this. Yeah. You could change a lot of minds. You could bring a lot of people into the fold. You could add to your flock right now, but you have to be willing to put your ideas up to scrutiny. And if that's too scary for you, maybe don't just spam the chat, you know? Maybe it's boring. Maybe it's a boring thing to do.
Not all religions are evangelical. Not all religious believers are called to go make disciples, but there are a couple that, in fact, it is explicitly directed from their God. And I would just like to say, for your sake, in the afterlife, I think you should call and try to convince us, because I would hate for you to wind up in eternal agony with Forrest and I. Although I'll be honest, it will be more fun.
It's gonna be a fucking wild ride, y'all. Well, I'm gonna make little like pinwheels and stuff.
And speaking of a wild ride,
if hell doesn't have snacks, it will truly be torture.
Oh yeah, they must have snacks. But they're all
gonna be like a finger food table.
They're all like slightly stale or something, you know. Like, it's just... No, but speaking of a wonderful time, I have to tell you guys about something super, super cool that is happening this year in a little known place called Austin, freaking Texas. Well, it is the time of the year for our annual Bat Cruise fundraiser here at the ACA. So come join us August 24th. You will get to hang out with people like the amazing Forrest, Valkai, J Mike, myself, Objectively Dan, Jimmy Jr., Jamie the Blind Limey, and many other familiar faces will be in attendance. Get more information and buy your tickets at tiny.cc/batcruise. We make it easy. And right now, below the chat, we are running a direct fundraiser to help offset the travel and lodging costs for the Bat Cruise fundraiser. Donate below, and 100% of your contributions will go directly to the ACA, and that means a whole bunch for us. I can tell you, I am thrilled to be down there. It is going to be a really, really cool time. And we hope absolutely every one of you that are able to will come out and hang with us and watch some bats and talk about God and other things too. Actually, there's, you know, we all
want to meet Forrest, Valkai.
Man, you know, I've heard that secular Rarity guy talks too much, but I've also heard his hair isn't real. You know, I've heard he actually puts a wig on. So I would like to find out, you know. I'd like to know.
I'm willing to continue that rumor. Yeah, that's
right. I'd love that. Let's just get that going around. But we are here to take some calls, and we are filling up, y'all. So I am excited. Thank you so much. And everybody else that got timed out, if you're still watching in anger and grinding your teeth, I mean, call us, man. Chance. Yeah, seriously.
Lines are open.
With that, though, we are going to go out to the UK. We're going to talk with trans atheists, they, them, who is asking us, Forrest, is homosexuality moral to an atheist? Well, I will say, just real quick answer there, trans atheist, which is, I don't think you can just make a blanket statement. I think every individual atheist is going to come to their own conclusions, although I've said for a while now that I think properly applied skepticism and logic leads you to both atheism and secular humanism, which would be very much in support of and an ally of LGBTQ people everywhere. I think, though, sexuality in general hetero or homo, is probably just amoral. It's probably just one of those things in the world that isn't actually on the morality spectrum. I think it's more about how you engage with stuff. If you, as somebody who is homosexual or heterosexual, are violating people's consent and autonomy, if you're harming people physically and emotionally, that's the immoral shit. Everything else is good, right? Forrest?
Yeah, I could go on about that for a long time,
Right.
but let's talk to this person first. Hello.
Yeah, what do you think?
Hi, my actual name is Royal Trans Atheist.
Sure, that
Okay.
works, Royal.
You had a character limit, but I transitioned from atheism to theism.
Okay.
So is that the trans thing? Is it just poking fun at trans people in order to say that you're a theist?
No, it's not poking fun. Absolutely not. I wouldn't even think about poking fun at trans people. I respect
Okay.
So why not use the word convert?
belief.
Yeah.
Why? Because
did
I
you-
transitioned from atheism to theism.
Right.
Cool. Just out of curiosity, then, like, why use like the word? You understand how that's going to read to people in a general audience, right? Like, just let's cut the bullshit here. You get what you're doing with that, yeah?
I don't get what I'm doing. It's just really, really, it's just semantics, isn't it? I transitioned from atheism to theism.
It seems like
I
it
am
seems
not
like
really
there were
convinced.
lots of other terms though that you could have very easily chosen and specifically
Okay, can I-
decided to
can I-
pick that one. And I guess where it feels like you're coming from, and Forrest, please tell me if I'm wrong here, but it feels like you're just going out of your way to try and be a little shitty to a group of people and just do it in a way in which it kind of comes off as more like playful. And I think ultimately you're just being kind of shitty, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm okay with us moving on unless you were.
I'll listen to. I'll poke at this person just a little bit more, just to see where we're coming
Well,
from.
we-
I see that we had an
we
issue with
lost him,
Colin's studio there.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah,
That's all right.
I'm not
'cause
sure if they're still there.
It's just, you know, it was weird. That's weird. And I guess I just don't get it. I don't get folks who have that much. I don't know if it's time or just bigotry, or I'm not sure. I don't want to ascribe motives. It's just weird to me. It's like, wouldn't you think you would just do anything else other than coming up with like jokes about trans people? Like, if you really just don't like gay people, like, why spend all the time talking about, you know? I don't know. I don't know, man.
I'm trying to see, because like I was on a different show recently, and we got a call from a guy in the UK who I believe went by the name Mr. British or something like that, who was pulling similar shit. So I'm just trying to see, like, maybe if this was the same
similar
dude.
person.
Just looking for more reasons to be an asshole. What you know? Let's give this guy every benefit of every doubt.
Oh, hey, they're back.
Do we keep you? There it is.
Maybe. Oh, well, we had you for a second, and then we lost you. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Crew, if you get them back, feel free to just throw them on for us, and I have some things. But otherwise,
I would love to talk to this person.
Yeah.
It's just like, if I give this person every benefit of every doubt and say, like, really genuinely, they just completely innocently had no fucking idea what that was going to sound like to people. Like, they live under a rock. They have no context of the current political climate. They're just rolling with it.
Disconnecting. I apologize. I don't know what's happening with my connection.
Hey, well, it's stable
There
for
you
the
are.
moment. So, did you hear any of that? Did you hear any of that, Royal?
I didn't. My apologies. I got
Okay.
disconnected. I don't know what happened.
No worries.
Let me ask you a question. Did you call in before under the name Mr. British?
No.
Okay, cool. Have you ever called any of these shows before?
No, this is my first. I was just flicking through YouTube and you were on live, so I thought I'd call you.
Okay.
Okay,
That's
we'll
all right.
leave that for now, I guess. Why not? So, as we were saying, like assuming you don't have any context or at all of like anything to do with the political climate today, we'll just call that, give you every benefit of every doubt for a second and just say this is totally fine. The question you called in to ask is also a little bit silly. Do you understand after what Elliot said before why? Because atheists are not like a monolith of thinking in any one particular way.
Yeah, do you get that part at least? Then we can move on to the amorality thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wanted to address the terminology that you took offense to, you know, the trans atheist.
We'll get there later.
Yeah.
I'd like you to answer the question we just asked first.
Yeah, you called into the show that we are hosting. When you host a show and we call in, you can take the conversation wherever you'd like, Royal. But yeah, answer Forrest's question, if you will, please.
What's the question again? Just remind me, because there's just been a lot of dialogue.
Sure. So the question was, a minute ago when you called the first time, Elliot mentioned, your question was, is homosexuality moral under atheism? And Elliot gave a very nice summary of, you know, just to be really, really compressed here and leave a lot of stuff out, that basically atheism is just a single position on a single question, whether or not you believe in God. There are plenty of moral atheists and amoral and immoral atheists. There are atheist Republicans, Democrats, conservatives, liberals. There are plenty of atheists that share very different beliefs on a lot of things, including morality. So it's kind of a silly question. However, based on what he was talking about, and this is something he and I, excuse me, I'm not done talking. What he and I both agree on is that properly applied, skepticism and logic and reason will lead you down a path that leads you to accept LGBTQ people and defend them and their rights to exist and have full equality with everybody else. So he gave you a reason why your question didn't make any sense, and also an answer from his perspective, which I also share. Do you understand that? And would you like to rephrase your question or ask a follow-up based on that?
Okay, well, let me respond. I think you've asked a very detailed question, which will require a detailed response. My understanding of what your colleague said is that he believes that homosexuality is amoral. So he didn't place a moral value to the actual act, which I find rather confusing.
Yes. Sexuality in general is what I said.
Expand upon
right there. It's no more moral it's no more moral or immoral to be homosexual than it is to be tall or white or Asian or have long hair or like it's just how you're born.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't have anything to do that in and of itself. When I wake up in the morning and I go, I like ladies, or I like dudes, that's not on that playing field of morality, right?
Precisely.
It's only when I start to interact in certain ways that it could be. Go ahead.
Forrest, you said something really interesting. You said the phrase, it's how we're born. What part, can you explain what part of being born is affiliated with being homosexual?
There's like, the evidence is pretty clear that you don't shoot. So again, the evidence is pretty clear that sexuality is not a choice and that it is something that is like developmental. The last time I read something about it, which again, this is not my field, I'm not a psychologist, I don't study sexuality or anything like this, was that it seems like that's something that develops within the last trimester of pregnancy up to like the first like month or so after being born, maybe at the absolute latest. But overwhelming consensus is that it's not a choice and it's not a mental disorder or anything like that. It's just a part of the spectrum of human sexuality. And indeed, we see homosexuality and homosexual behavior in like a lot of other species as well. Over 1,500 animal species we've documented homosexuality in. So like, it's just a thing that happens in nature, and that's cool.
Like, weren't you born, Kevin? Didn't you just like have a sexuality, right? Like asexual, heterosexual, homosexual. Like, wasn't that just a thing? And at no point in your life did you like sit down and weigh the pros and cons? Like, I don't know. Maybe I should be attracted more to vaginas instead of penises. Right. Like, it's just like, was that ever a conversation you had with yourself, buddy? Like, if so, fascinating. Please tell us. But
Can I ask a serious question?
Sure.
I'd like you to answer. I would like you to answer Elliot's first.
Yeah,
what time did you decide to be straight?
Which scientist are you quoting?
I'm not going to answer your question yet. I'm going to ask you again to answer the question that Elliot just asked. At which point in your life did you decide to be straight?
Oh my God.
At which point?
Yeah, like, did you, man? Was there a moment you sat down and were just like, gosh?
It's when I transitioned from atheism to theism.
So he is. So
you were gay.
He was just.
So you were gay, and now you've decided to be straight.
How did you do that?
No,
I feel like if that were possible, that would be something that all of us as people would want. I'm just being honest here. Like, just the ability to just change your sexuality at whim. I mean, come on.
Fun.
Yeah, like, what an incredible superpower.
Tuesday night weird.
Yeah, right? Like, I don't know, man. I don't know, man. I just look, Royal. I feel like.
Okay, you go ahead, but I want to hear his answer to that.
Yeah, I just feel like you were never serious on this, man, because I feel like this question is really easy. Of course not. Like, the answer is you didn't. And so, like, yeah, nobody else did either, man. Now you can just say, I mean, I'll give you a chance to respond. You can just say, hey, look, Forrest, SR, I actually just don't like gay people. I just don't like them. You know, you can just say that. You can just say that. Now, we disagree. We think that's fucking terrible. We'll try to convince you out of that thought. But like, why go through all this rigmarole when at the end of the day, what you really want to say is that I just think gay people are icky. Yeah, like, yeah, it's, you know, I don't know, man. Did you ever decide?
I don't have any issues with LGBTQ+. I don't have any issues.
Okay, so why are you asking?
Is homosexuality moral in your worldview, sir?
Say again?
Is homosexuality moral in your worldview, sir?
In my worldview, in my trans atheist to theist worldview.
In whatever the hell you're doing with your life,
man,
dude.
It's a really easy question. Yes or no?
It's a very, very simple answer.
It doesn't mean that I cannot coexist with.
I would love for you to just try at one point to give a straight answer to a straight question.
I know, because you know what I feel like.
Do you believe that homosexuality is immoral? That can be answered in one word.
Do I believe it is immoral? Listen, I just subscribe to a religious doctrine.
I'm going to ask again, and I'm not going to let you go until you answer this one question. Do you believe that homosexuality is immoral?
I believe it's legal.
I'm going to ask again, and we're not going to move on until you answer this question. Do you believe that homosexuality is immoral?
I plead the fifth.
It really sounds like
again, and we're not gonna move on until you answer this question.
Come on.
Do you believe that homosexuality is immoral?
Come on, Royal, you got this.
I'm here to discuss. I'm here.
I don't know why you're laughing.
You off. Yep. Nope. No, we're not letting you laugh, and we're not letting you talk. You're gonna answer this question, or the call's never gonna move on. We're either gonna end the call, or this will be the call for the next hour. I don't care what it is. You are going to answer this question honestly, or you're not gonna get to say anything else on this show, because I'm so sick of you being a dis fucking honest troll. It's insane to me that you think we would tolerate it. Neither Elliot nor I are convinced. Neither Elliot nor I are entertained. You're fucking boring and lazy with it, dude. So you're gonna answer this question, or we're not gonna do anything else in this show. Do you believe that homosexuality is immoral? Yes or no?
Well, thank you for asking that question, Forrest. Let me answer it in a very detailed way.
You're going to say one
yes or no
fucking word. That's it. I don't care which word you fucking choose, okay? Because it's your belief system here. All we're doing is asking what you hold to be true, which is surprising to me that it would take such effort for anybody to just say that. Just tell me what you believe. It's really, I'll answer the question real quick. Hey, Forrest, the answer to your question from my perspective is no, I don't think that.
I also don't think homosexuality is immoral. Good thing. Yeah.
Hey, Royal, I'm going to bring you back on, okay? Because I got you muted. You're going to hear a little beep, and you're going to be able to say something. One fucking word. Yes or no. I feel confident you know the question. So, you're back on. Yes.
It doesn't work like
or no.
Okay, I'm going to answer the question.
No, you're fucking not, because what you're doing is going so fucking far around your elbow to get to your own asshole for no purpose. For no purpose other than the fact that you just don't want to admit that the thing you so casually said earlier, oh, I don't have a problem with LGBTQ. I don't have a problem with them. No, I can coexist with them. What you actually meant was, if it were up to you, they wouldn't fucking exist, because you do have a fucking problem with them at their core. That's what, that's truly what you're saying here, man. Because seriously, I know outright bigots who have no problem just being like, yeah, man, I actually do have a problem with that shit, and it's because of my religion.
And then we can talk.
And then we can talk
about it, yes.
Right.
But instead, you're going to give this bullshit smokescreen workaround that's as stupid and cowardly as saying, I didn't think that calling myself a trans atheist was going to have any sort of like transphobic element that might be politically charged and hurt a marginalized group in this country. I don't know what you're talking about. It's that level of stupid and cowardly.
Grow up. I mean, honestly, if you want to be a bigot, if you want to live your life as an asshole, just say it with your chest and let us know who the fuck you are. Because otherwise, you're just being a fucking coward, man. Like,
try it again. Unless you want to move on.
No,
you dropped it.
Yeah, you asked it like 6 times for us. You were so generous, bro. Like,
that is the thing. I have to remember that this show has a time, because I would have stayed there all fucking day. I would have stayed there all day.
2 hours of just you going. Answer the question.
Yes or no. Well, Jesus, you see, no, yes or no. Well, the thing is, yes or no. In my belief, yes or no. Just would have been like a Looney Tunes cartoon.
It's just wacky how different calls can go like that. Like back to back, we have one call and it's like, we're disagreeing, but it's really productive and both sides concede points and then there's another call where the person just digs their fucking heels in on the weirdest thing, man. Like,
just the dumbest of all hills to die on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just insane.
Just say it.
It's madness. It's madness.
Oh, well, because this is a moment where I get to, read some announcements in any order that I want. That's one of the perks here. And because of that last call,
you're a better host than I, because I always forget.
I just kind of jump around. The crew is just constantly frustrated, and they're like, "Why don't you go in order, man? We put numbers next to them.
At least you remember to do it."
That's true. I want to give us all just a little bit of a woo-saw moment, and one way that we're going to do that is by sending the biggest, the bestest thank you to the coolest, most wonderful, hardworking crew who put this show on together every week, and they have to listen to me and Forrest talk about wacky shit before the show starts, and they are constantly face palming and disappointed with us. Yeah. And truly, I gotta be honest, dog. Like, why did you let the last one through? Come on. No, he does great. Honestly, it's amazing that he works the button so well with those paws.
Without thumbs.
That's
Yeah,
right.
it's
It's
amazing.
impressive. It's really impressive. But I see a lot of other really good calls, and we are going to go out to Ohio. We're going to talk with a theist, Seethi. Him has a question for you, Forrest. So I will let you have the mic, Seethi, and just ask Forrest your question.
Hello.
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
Yeah.
Forrest, I've been watching quite a few of your videos on sex and gender. Really interesting stuff. I've been learning a lot. There's one thing I heard you say that was just a little confusing. Maybe you could clarify, help me. On a different episode, I think it was of The Line, maybe, someone called in and they were talking about transgenderism, and they phrased it as not being the gender of your biological sex. And you objected to that phrasing by saying there is no gender of a sex because sex and gender are different. So there's no gender of a sex. I was just kind of confused because to me, that seemed like a fair way of describing it. I thought that was pretty consistent with a lot of other things. So I don't know, maybe you misspoke or maybe I'm just not understanding. So if you could clarify that.
Yeah. So I don't know exactly what call you're talking about. If I was being that like detailed though, it was probably because whoever I was talking to is really digging their heels on and using words like transgenderism, which is, bullshit. It's not a reasonable thing to call just the acceptance of the fact that some people are trans. And I don't think you're being rude by using that term. I just want to point out, don't use that term. But anyway, or I encourage you not to. But if I was being that detailed about it, it was probably because somebody was trying to really drive home their belief that sex and gender are the same thing. And that's simply not the case. You cannot boil like gender down to a sex. You cannot predict gender from a sex. We do typically see a pattern where certain genders do align with certain sexes in a society, but it's really important to point out that that isn't diagnostic, and that doesn't mean that therefore this is like the normal way to do things. Because gender is a social construct, it's constantly changing. It changes from culture to culture, from person to person, from generation to generation, from day to day. And there are plenty of cultures out there that have multiple or have more than two genders or have different concepts of genders. Even in our own culture, back in the 1700s, it was very masculine for a man to weep with emotion and to faint and to be, overtaken by their feelings. The manly weep was a big thing. And nowadays we wouldn't allow that because our concept of gender has changed dramatically. And so we don't allow men to wear wigs and makeup and things like that anymore, and without calling them drag, you know what I mean? And so that's just kind of how it goes. And so what I was saying at that, I don't know the exact call you're talking about. I've talked about this shit a lot, but like, what I mean by a statement like that, or what I would mean at this moment today, is that gender and sex are different things. One is biological, one is social. Neither one of which is a strict binary. In fact, the gender thing is so fluid and so changing. The fact alone that it's a social construct, not a biological one, it is necessarily not, it cannot be a strict binary. But in the same way that Christianity versus Islam isn't a binary, you know what I mean? It just doesn't make any friggin' sense. Watch some transphobic dickhead clip that and be like, see, they admit it's a religion. But the whole thing is that, because gender can't be boiled down to or predicted by sex, there is no gender of a sex. What we are talking about when we talk about trans people is that your gender and your sex are not congruent in the framework of the society that you are, or the cultural network that you're currently living in. Because gender is built upon the culture, being outside of that cultural norm, that's where you get into trans and non-binary identities. Does that make a little bit more sense?
I think so. So if I'm understanding, when we talk about like the congruence or the alignment, we're talking more just like probability wise, like the link between being a male and being a man. That's more just like probability rather than like there being an intrinsic link between the two.
I mean, I would raise an eyebrow at the word probability because I don't know what exactly you're talking about there, but I don't think you mean anything bad by it. See, I guess that's fine.
Generally, those two things are linked, but not always. I guess that's what I meant.
Yeah, and so like that's. Yes. So like that's the key, is that whenever we're talking about this stuff, like we have to make sure that we're using the right terminology as best we can. And when you fuck up, you fix it and you move on. Just like you say, make a distinction. Are you talking about male and female, or are you talking about man and woman? And if you're talking about male and female, are you talking about, is that all you're talking about? Because there's a bit more to it than that. We could be talking about male, female, and intersex persons who we would often lump in and put as categorize, just as male or female for convenience sake, but aren't going to fall into the same paradigm that others are. Are you talking about hormonal male? Are you talking about genetic male? Are you talking about chromosomal male? Are you talking about anatomical male? Are you talking about phenotypic male? And that's all different than man. That's a totally different word. That means a totally different thing. And so like in like biomed school, that's something that we do a lot. Like at the last semester, I was working in this anatomy lab for the whole semester, just tinkering on people all day long. And like that was a really important thing to say, is when you're talking about this person, this cadaver in front of you, what kind of man or male do you mean? What are you? Because if you say one thing, you could mean 30 other things. You need to be clear. So this is an anatomic male, and so I'm looking for these structures in the body. This is a phenotypic female, but in fact, their chromosomes actually read differently, and that's important. And so I'm making the distinction. I'm telling you what I'm talking about. That I'm going to say if this is a woman because we knew this person when they were alive and knew what pronouns they prefer. You know what I mean? Like we actually had some cadavers in there that like we knew the people. And so I was comfortable saying, this man rather than this anatomical male cadaver. You know what I mean? Anatomic and phenotypic male that's fine to say. That's different than saying man. So that's what all that's about. It's just making sure to be really, really careful with the terminology that we're using from a scientific perspective in order to make sure that we're as accurate and as inclusive as possible. And I think you'll find that if you are being scientifically accurate, more often than not, you're also going to be inclusive, and vice versa as well. If you're being more deliberately inclusive, you are also almost always being more scientifically accurate as well. So that's why I make those things. I don't think anybody needs to be held to that same standard because, again, I'm doing that shit usually in an academic setting. But when I'm getting into an argument about it online, I try to be a little bit more careful, and that's where that's coming from. Sorry, I know I just talked a lot.
No, it was really, really good. I really love that thing you said at the end, because I'm right there with you, too. I think the science is very much LGBTQ supportive. I think the actual data is so overwhelmingly pointing in that direction. Precisely. But I'll shut up because Seethi, I'm sure you have lots of thoughts, maybe some other questions. So what you got for us?
I think you pretty much answered. I got to do way more study on this to make sure I got it all straight. But I appreciate you explaining it. Yeah. So it sounds like maybe since being a man can kind of vary even like culture to culture, it doesn't
right
really
now
even say that male and man are intrinsically linked, because that can mean different things to so many different people.
Precisely. Yeah. And like, that's what, when we say things like, trans men are men and trans women are women, like to then have somebody come back with some argument about chromosomes or about anatomy or whatever like that, because these are different concepts, that is missing the point. They are in the gender category that they're in. And so anatomy, chromosomes, whatever like that, isn't what we're talking about. If you want to say, anatomical or phenotypic female isn't this other, or things like that, okay, well, then we can have that conversation. We can talk about the intricacies there, but at least let's have that conversation. You know what I mean? And so like that's what's really important, is that like when we're coming from this from a biological and anthropological perspective, like these kind of buzzwords and catchphrases that you hear in the political space, no matter what, side of this issue you find yourself on, they're really not as radical as they're painted as being. They're actually like, just this is the facts on the ground, and we can all agree on the facts, and then we can argue about what the facts mean. Like, that's fine. There's a lot of biologists out there that are still arguing for a strict binary model, because they think that the outliers of if 1% of the world is intersex, that's 80 million people. Right. And there's a lot of biologists out there that are just like, well, it's still percentage wise so small, or they use, tree thinking rather than population thinking, or typological thinking rather than population thinking. And they're like, this is what this structure looks like. And even though, sex is a multivariate system with a lot of wiggle room and variation in there, and it doesn't have a single thing that's solely, determinant of the outcome, and it doesn't have a single factor that goes into sex that has only two options, not a single one of them do. Because the distribution is so bimodal, we're just going to name the lumps and go with the name. And if you're going on like an evolutionary level, sure. If you're going at like a really typological thinking, sure. But when you're dealing with actual human beings or any living organism, like in its population today, that it's simply not appropriate. And so like that's kind of the whole thing. It is just like there's science isn't as easy as just saying, here's the thing. There's a lot of discussion involved. And I think people need to be a little bit more understanding of that. Anyway, again, can't stress enough, I am very long-winded, especially on this issue. So, like, I hope I answered your question without, dumping too much on you.
Can I just ask one final question? It should be pretty quick, and then we can move on to another caller.
Yeah, totally.
If I were to describe a transgender person as someone whose gender does not align with their sex, is that technically not the best way to phrase it? And if so, what's a better way to phrase it?
I don't. So there's no like that is the definition of a transgender person, and so like that's fine. It's just their gender and their sex doesn't align. Their gender doesn't align with their sex. That's totally fine. It's just when you're doing these things, it's really important to remember like how you're saying these things and why. And so like the actual verbiage you're using is really fucking important, and I'm really happy you clarified. But you could very easily just put a slight little slant to your voice and make that kind of accusatory and like trying to draw attention to something that has been used to diminish and dehumanize trans people. So you have to kind of just be caught. It's one of the, it's a shitty situation. And there's a million things like this where like, because of the history of marginalization and oppression of this community, you just have to be a little bit extra careful about what you're saying and why, and be willing to like correct it constantly and make sure that you're not causing more harm while trying to be well-intentioned and accurate in what you're saying, because that happens a lot with a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think one thing Forrest said early on is just really, really important to always have at the forefront when you're having this discussion is the fluidity of all of this, right? Like the fact that so much of this flows into so many other things and the distinctions aren't that clear. I love Christy Powell, a regular host on this show, was the host of Secular Sexuality. Maybe one day we'll get that going back up again. But he always said this, and I love this statement, which is embrace the ish and squish of life, because that's what so much of it is, man. So much of this is just squishy, not perfectly defined and laid out. But like when you jump full head first into all of that, what you come to find is a lot of really good shit. That's what I think, and that's what I've found. I mean, just imagine you're sitting around with a bunch of people and somebody says, gosh, I think we should be inclusive to people despite what their phenotype is. And then somebody jumps up and goes, no, actually, I want to discriminate against people on their genotype, actually. I think you're right. Long hair, short hair, blonde, brunette, doesn't matter. But like XY, we really need to discriminate. Just imagine that. No, who you are, what you do in life. I'm not going to discriminate. But, it's just, again, going out of your way to find a reason to draw a boundary to push those people out. I don't think that you're ever going to find goodness at the end of that rainbow. But Seethi, thank you so freaking much. I know there was so much information that Forrest has just uploaded into all of us. Here is the best freaking thing I can tell you, brother, which is that this was all recorded and you can go and rewatch it even in half speed to make sure you don't miss anything.
I don't encourage you to watch any more of my things ever, but I appreciate if you want to learn.
Thank you so much, Seethi. We really, really do appreciate it, man.
Maybe I should stop doing that.
Yeah. No, get out there, watch all of Forrest's stuff. Seriously, if anybody watching this hasn't seen your videos, man, I don't know what the hell they're doing.
Good for them.
But seriously, Seethi, we really appreciate you, and I'm gonna let you go. Another really good call, I think.
Nice
with the Theist. Yeah, seriously, and that. Go ahead, please.
I just want to say there's I should have said this earlier. There's a whole show, the Transatlantic Call-In Show, is hosted by trans people who they take these kind of questions all the time, and they'll tell you themselves how they'd prefer to be talked about, referred to, all these things. So you'll look them up. I think they're on Thursdays. So just then they're here on the YouTube machine. So check them out. They're really cool.
Yep, really, really good show, and lots of great information, and
amazing show.
And that's always important too. Just talking with the person that you're talking to. I know it's wild, right? But you're having a conversation with this trans person. You're not having a conversation with all trans people around the world, right? Just the same as the atheist 2 houses down isn't the same as me, right? The same is true for it's surprising. Trans people are people, and they're just like us. Some of them are really super cool, and some of them kind of suck just because all people are like
they're
that.
people. Yes, exactly. Yes.
Just, but seriously, I thought that was a great call, man. You always have such good stuff on that.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you.
And we have other calls, and I am really, really excited
I do
to
like
take
other calls.
them. I want to talk to you, Caleb. I want to go out to Ohio. Him, Caleb has some evidence for the supernatural. So Caleb, we are here for that, brother. Forrest and I are excited. We want this evidence for the supernatural. Make us believers. What you got?
Let's do it.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
So also starting out, it's kind of like a question. So what do you guys believe about the supernatural? What is your guys' opinion on that?
Forrest?
I don't think there's any reason to believe in anything that's supernatural. We have no evidence for anything that's supernatural, and what people present as evidence is usually just either anecdotes or I don't know, wrapped in a magic blanket of spirituality and shit. So just I don't want to speak for both of us, but I'm pretty confident in saying neither person on this show believes in any supernatural things. Gods, ghosts, angels, Bigfoots, you name it.
I'm right there with you, Forrest. And I think that the term supernatural historically, right, what it has been is this catch-all term for us to put anything in that we just don't understand. And ultimately, some of those things we have gotten more information on. And so no longer do we put them in that mystery box. But there are still some things that have kind of stuck around. Of those, the ones that Forrest just mentioned are really good examples. So, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, well, what you were mentioning, I don't want to speak for you guys because I don't know what you guys were thinking, but it sounds kind of similar to since we don't know, you said put God in there, so that, that's the God of the gaps fallacy that's commonly used. I know what that is, but you see, we're not using God to plug in the holes in our knowledge. When I say we, I mean me and other Christians. And so, do you guys believe that nature had a beginning? At the beginning of the universe, which is commonly called the Big Bang?
I'm comfortable either way. I think what the information tells us is that this current presentation that we're all hanging out in and eating cupcakes in, there was at some point this big expansion and all that goodness. What happened before that? Does that even make logical or semantic sense? I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, I don't even know that in a solid, firm answer to that question any which way gets us anything, to be honest. Let's just say Forrest and I do accept a beginning to the universe. What does that matter? What does that change about the supernatural stuff,
What I was saying though is that, so, and I'm not even mentioning God when I say this. I'm not even necessarily saying it had to be something that was intelligent, but I'm just saying that if there was no nature, if your definition of supernatural is just something that is beyond nature, just something that isn't nature, then the cause of the universe, wouldn't it be supernatural if there was no nature and the universe?
It could be a different kind of nature. It could just be an aspect of nature that we haven't discovered, right? But yeah, please, Forrest.
If I could, like that's so I didn't want to do this because I feel like it kind of gets people off on a bad foot, but like this is kind of the reason why like we sometimes have to ask, what do you mean by supernatural? Yeah. And like that, because if you're talking about like what caused the Big Bang, right? If that's really the heart of what you're getting at here, I don't know. And I'm comfortable saying I don't know because I don't even know what the question means. Because as Elliot was just talking about just a second ago, you are talking the Big Bang was the beginning of all time and the expansion of space, right? So you have this singularity that is expanding into the universe that we know of today. This is where all space is expanding and the beginning of what we call time. So you're asking what happened before the word before meant anything, before time was a thing, to measure what was before in a place that wasn't anywhere in the universe. So somewhere before, outside of everywhere, what happened? And I don't know how to answer that question. And I'm also, I'm not a physicist, I'm a biologist. So who knows, maybe there's a little bit more nuance there that I could be talking about. But even like, I don't know of anybody who would even take that question seriously. And especially not somebody who would then plug in, okay, well, maybe it was just a guy. It was just some guy, you know what I mean? And that's what this guy already dropped. But like what he hung up a minute ago, what's so frustrating to me is that like, we're coming at this with like real actual observations of the universe. And like, you can fucking plot out a Hubble's law or Hubble's constant on a line and yourself. You can calculate it yourself. You can figure out what the age of the universe is yourself. You can look at abiogenesis and the evidence we have for it. You can look at evolution, the evidence we have for it. You can look at the like centuries of research that has gone into figuring out what's going on in the universe around us. And then the alternative is it was just some guy. It was a guy. There was this guy who was just floating around in space, except it wasn't space yet. And also yet didn't mean anything because there was no time. But it's just this guy, and he's rocking around on a magic space throne, and he just decided to whip up the whole universe because he's a space wizard and he can do cool shit like that. And there's this fucking guy who just made the stuff, and he really needs to make sure you don't eat a shrimp. That's the biggest concern for this guy. He's got galaxy on galaxy to attend to. He's got countless billions of light years in every direction. He's got quadrillions of stars and planets and shit that he's got to keep spinning. He is really, really busy with beetles. But man, if you touch yourself at night, shit's weird. And like, so you got to understand this guy and his priorities. And like, I don't get how anybody is going to say that with a straight face when your argument is coming against like the actual wealth of knowledge and evidence that we have about the universe. It's nutty, dude.
I gotta be honest, Forrest. After everything you just said, I'm thinking we need to write this down in a book and start taking donations. That's all. It sounded
people
pretty
need
convincing.
To know about the space guy.
It sounded convincing.
Do you think really like the countless laboratory experiments demonstrating evolution, showing how mutation works, showing how epigenetic changes works, showing how inheritance works, do you really think that like the hundreds of years of evidence that we have of understanding different life forms and how they change and how they show, looking at the millions of years of fossil evidence that we have, do you really think that the space telescopes we've got looking out at different planets and different galaxies and like understanding how things are moving, the physics of light and how they tell us about the motion of galaxies, do you really think that that's it? Or do you think it was the magic space guy? Because I think it might have been a magic space guy. And it's like, dude, I can't fucking have a serious, like, I can't, I don't get how people say that. You know what I mean?
No, I get you, man.
It's fine to have a belief, but to try to hold the two up and be like, man, I don't know. It might have been a space guy.
That's what's great about some of those, real hardcore young Earth creationists. I'm going to call them laboratories,
Sure.
those places that really want to get that, robust science behind their belief, and then 90% of the things that they end up publishing, just like the conclusion is like, well, we just take it as a matter of faith, it's a miracle. It's like, just say that. Don't waste my time. Don't tell me you went out digging for all this shit and you found fossils and whatever. Like, don't even waste my time. Just say, hey man, I read the book. I accept it. That's why lizards are the way they are.
I'm into the magic space guy.
It's fine.
I can't. Yeah. A friend of mine, Austin Archer, which people should follow him. I was doing a show with him at one point, and he presented, because we had this guy who was on the phone with me for like an hour talking about evolution, and he kept being like, you can't prove this. I'm like, yeah, here's where we did. And it's like, well, you have no evidence for this. I'm like, here's where the evidence is. And like at the end of it, like Austin lost his mind, and that was his gambit, was like, you're seriously coming in here with like an hour of conversation, and you're just like, I think it was a guy. It was just some guy. And I have not been able to get it out of my head since. And it's like when South Park pointed out how stupid Family Guy was, and all of a sudden I couldn't watch it because I couldn't stop seeing what they were talking. It's exactly the same. Ever since Austin was like, the alternative hypothesis is just, it was just some guy, and I can't get that out of my brain. Credits to Austin, by the way. Dude's freaking awesome.
Heck yeah. I always love finding new content creators that make good stuff.
He's great.
Man. Can you see the queue? You see all the people?
Yeah, I'm looking at number 45, and I have one question that I want to ask.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So okay, I was gonna ask if you wanted to bring on 45 next. Good, we'll do that. I just want to tell everybody that if you are having fun this episode, if you are enjoying me and Forrest yelling at people and just being just completely exasperated with some of these comments today, there is one very simple way you can support us, and that's on Patreon. And by giving to our Patreon, see what that ensures is that money goes to us. YouTube doesn't take a cut. It doesn't pass go. It doesn't go to jail. All of those things. We get all of that money, whether it's $2 or $200. But either way, you supporting us on Patreon really helps us out. And if you'd like to do it, you can check it out at tiny.cc/PatreonAXP. Now, we're going to go to this next feller, and we are going to go out to London, and we're going to talk to Mr. British. Hey, Mr. British, you're on with Secular Rarity and Forrest Valkai, and Forrest actually has a question for you, so he would love if you could answer this directly, please.
Yeah, Mr. British, in your worldview, is homosexuality immoral?
Well, I'm a Muslim, so yes, it is.
Okay, well there we go. Okay, see,
that was quick.
Yes,
thank you.
I was convinced that you were a different guy, and I just wanted to make sure we got that out the gate right away,
folks. Skeptics,
it's real fucking easy to do.
Thank you. And we know that's not what you're calling in about, and we do disagree with that, but thank you for being able to answer that and just showing others that it is possible to answer that. Now, Mr. British, you have a question for us, so we will let you get to that. What do you got for us, brother?
Is atheism appropriating the word theist inappropriately?
What could that possibly mean?
Yeah.
It's an interesting
question.
We're theists, right? We believe in a God.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't believe in a God. What would you call me?
So therefore I am a theist. Yes. Against theism. I am without theism, so I am atheist. Yes.
Right. On the other side of theism.
Yes, precisely.
Yeah. Seems pretty.
Can't you use it? Can't you explain your beliefs without God?
Secular humanist, but that doesn't tell you whether or not I'm an atheist, right?
Precisely,
if somebody tells me they are a believer in a God, and I say that really when it comes to moral conversations, what I believe is that humans have no indication that any supernatural entity is going to come down and give us a clear direction as to how to suss out these kind of weird fuzzy bits on the end. And ultimately, I think that we should, engage with each other in such a way that, takes account of well-being and flourishing. That doesn't have anything to do with what the other person just said. They said, "Hi, my name's Mr. British, and I believe in a God." And my response would be, "Hi, I'm Secular Rarity. I don't." And so that's why the term atheist. So like, yeah, the further conversation, yeah, secular humanist, skeptic, all that jazz.
But I just want to throw out there that the best comment of the entire show thus far comes from Trevor Belmont, who just put in the chat, "What's burdens of Bruce Precious?" That's so good. That's so good. Mr. British, yeah, so do you understand everything that Elliot was just talking about? Like, does that make sense to you?
Have I been muted all this time?
No, we've just been talking. And if you were trying to talk in the middle of us talking, I would just say that most people would consider that to be rude. So we just, continued with until we finished. So, but now we'll give you time if you'd like to respond to what we just said. We'll give you some time here.
You took a lot of offense at the previous caller, Royal Trans Atheist, when he used the word trans.
Yeah, are you going to answer the question, or are you going to try to divert?
Yeah, I guess.
Are you going to answer the question, or are you going to try to divert some other thing?
Right. I'm not positive why you would want to have a conversation about anything other than like your own life and your thoughts. Right. Like you talked to a human being. I know because I do call screening myself. So like I know what that process was like for you. It couldn't have been 30 seconds. It had to have taken at least a couple of minutes. I'm confused as to why you would do all of that and then sit in the queue for 26 minutes to go, "Well, I think you said some not so great things a few calls ago." That's just a weird choice, man. We genuinely wanted to have this conversation because I think both of us were intrigued by this question and wanted to pick your brain a little. We tried talking with Royal. You saw how that went. You really crushed him in about 2 seconds by just answering the fucking question. Would you like to continue down
miles
that path?
Ahead of that dude.
Yeah, seriously. This call's going great so far.
Compared to that dude, oh my god.
So like, yeah, would you like to actually the three of us talk about what you believe and what we believe, or do you just want to come on to defend your friend Royal? Because you can. Sort of, because I'll probably just drop you. Yeah. So.
Because Forrest, you said that that science proves that people are born gay. What science have you been reading?
So that is the plan then? Is that you're
you
going to
just want to like rehash that?
You're going to completely ditch the thing that you called about and the thing that we were talking about, so you can dig into what the other caller was talking about. Is that what we're doing?
It just feels a little dishonest,
Yeah, kind of sucks.
Yeah.
I'm genuinely interested.
Well, I'm genuinely interested in your question about is atheism appropriating the word theist? And so because you're not the individual who over 26 years ago started a nonprofit organization in Austin, Texas, and then ultimately created a public access show that would eventually become this show that Forrest and I are on right now. Why don't we talk about the thing you called about?
Answer the question.
I would like you to answer a question for me, actually.
Right. I think you should answer the question.
I've answered your question, and you've answered
a different question.
No, you fucking didn't. You just completely went off on another path, man. So don't pretend like we just forgot what happened 30 seconds ago. Neither of us are that fucking stupid. But
I have a question. For Mr. British. You said you're I seem to remember talking to you before. You said you're a doctor, right?
No. I think you've got me mistaken with someone else.
Some other dude. Okay, cool. So between you and me, then let's. You don't have to be a doctor to get this reference, but like, if a disease is showing symptoms, we would call that symptomatic, right? Mm-hmm. Have you heard that term before? Something is symptomatic.
I've heard of symptomatic. Yeah.
Okay, cool. If a disease doesn't show any symptoms, what word would you use to describe that disease?
If a disease doesn't show any symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What word would you use to describe such a thing?
Symptomless.
Okay, but so the word is asymptomatic.
Yeah.
But even symptomless, even symptomless has the words. even symptomless has the word symptom in it. So is that appropriating the word symptom in an unnecessary way?
Why don't you just call yourself secularist?
I don't understand why you have trouble with hearing Forrest. I'm not positive what the issue is. Maybe there was a breakdown on the line. Hey, Forrest, what was that question again?
Yeah. Why do you think that having symptomless or asymptomatic or anything like that describe a disease that doesn't show symptoms is appropriating and mischaracterizing the word symptom? Do you think that that's reasonable to say?
I think that there's a connotation with the word atheist, which contains the word theist. Why would you want?
I would love
yourself?
Yes, and the word asymptomatic contains the word symptom. So, do you think that the word asymptomatic is, as you put it, appropriating the word symptom?
Well, I use the word symptomless. Firstly. Okay.
Do you think
the word symptomless, which isn't a fucking word, right. Do you think the word symptomless is appropriating the word symptom?
Well, symptomless isn't a person, okay? Symptomless isn't a person.
So it sounds like what you're saying is, no, Forrest, I don't think the term symptomless or the term asymptomatic, which is actually a term.
A word, yes.
Yeah, I don't think either of those things are doing the thing that I'm somehow claiming atheism is doing with the word theism. So it seems like you're being inconsistent.
I also want to point out, like, you're right. Asymptomatic isn't a person. It's a descriptor. It's describing a state of being. Atheist isn't a person. It's describing a state of being. No. I don't believe in a deity. Therefore, I am described as an atheist, just as a disease that doesn't show symptoms is described as asymptomatic, right? So do you think that the word symptom in symptomless or asymptomatic shouldn't be there and we should find another term for it? Or do you think that you can use a term to describe whether or not something possesses a particular quality?
I think there's some double standards here, because when the previous caller used the word,
I mean, I agree. You are presenting them, but what double standards are you talking about?
Look, the issue is pretty clear. Okay.
I thought
the irony is you identify yourself as an atheist, but that uses God. Do you not understand that?
So
why don't you just use the word secular?
Let me try a different thing. You, like, if I told you I don't believe in the Dark Lord Sauron from the Lord of the Rings, and therefore I am mentioning Sauron in my description of what I don't believe in. Is that in some way co-opting and appropriating Sauronism?
Yeah.
In my view, you could use a better choice for word.
Like what? Like, how the fuck else do you say you don't believe in the Dark Lord Sauron without mentioning the Dark Lord Sauron? I'm confused. Like, help me out with this. Seriously, Mr. British. What else would we do?
You can use the word secularist.
For the disbelief in the Dark Lord Sauron? Stay with the analogy. There's a reason he chose it.
Why not? Why can't you use the word secularist?
To describe a disbelief in the Dark Lord Sauron. Does the word secularist have anything to do with that, man? This is really particular. There's a reason he used this analogy.
The irony is, you talk about God so...
I'm not positive you know what the definition of the word irony is, okay?
Yeah,
because you've said it multiple times, and then the things that you've pointed out as being ironic are not. One could say they are ironic, although, just like symptomless, that's not a fucking word, man. So again... Let's go back to this, which I really believe is very simple. I really, really do. Forrest said, hey, somebody comes up to him and describes a really particular version of a god of some kind. And then Forrest says, hey, I don't believe in that really particular version of a God that you just described. How else could one give that indication without reference to that very particular God that the first person say they believe in? Does that make sense? Is that a fair question?
I've just checked the dictionary and it contains the word symptomless.
Okay, neat. I'm so glad you spent that much time.
Forrest, you're right. On that note, atheism is over. Thank you so much, Mr. British.
Hold on, I have 2 questions before we let Mr. British go.
Please.
Mr. British, what is the definition of secularism?
What is the definition of secularism?
You got the dictionary, apparently, so...
Yeah, let's just
help
check.
us out.
What? Who's got the dictionary out? Did you say you've got the dictionary?
You said you just fucking looked up the goddamn word. Just do the same thing over again, just with secularism, man.
What is your personal definition? I don't care. What does the word secularism mean?
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, don't say that. That means you believe in it. Yes.
Hold on. I've looked up the word symptomless, okay? It doesn't mean I have the dictionary.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Could not give
secularism
less of a shit
definition. Hey, Forrest.
Yeah, thank you, Elliot. Thank you.
Here's one. The principle of separation of the state from religious institutions. Here's another one. Not in reference to a god or gods. There are 2 different definitions for you, Forrest.
What does the word atheist mean? Could you look that one up for me really quick?
Oh, let's see here. Let's just real quick
just double check that one for me.
Let's just go definition here. A person who disbelieves or lacks belief in the existence of God or gods.
Just that one thing, huh? Like that's pretty much the straightforward answer to it. So there's your answer, Mr. British, that secularism also references religions and spirituality and things. So it does the same thing that you don't want us to do. And also it's a little bit less concise. And so we just like atheists because it's very commonly used. It's kind of colloquial at this point. And so we use it. And what you're doing by making this argument is the same dumb shit that people do when they say that scientists shouldn't talk about theories anymore because so many people misunderstand what the word theory means. So we need to come up with another word. Or when people say that us believing that anything exists is borrowing from the theistic worldview because God made things and you can't know. It's that same level of just absolute vapid nothingness. It's just a word. And us using the word doesn't have any inherent meaning to like our state within our belief system. It's just a commonly used word. And your argument is like really, really, really boring.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other anything else you want to say, Forrest? Otherwise I'm gonna let Mr. British go.
No, I'll go a little further just in case. Just give me 1 second.
All right. I muted you, Mr. British, so I'm bringing you back on. I want you to
respond to what I just said.
Yeah. Forrest laid out some pretty good stuff, I thought. Pretty easy to follow.
Yeah. Can I respond?
What you thinking? Yeah.
Can I respond?
Yep.
Yes.
Go for it.
May I respond?
Jesus, flying fuck. Yes, man.
Okay, so I agree completely with your points that this appropriation of the word atheist completely proves the point when you absolutely went bonkers with the other caller when they used the word trans-atheist. Why? I
don't think like he's responding to anything you're saying, Forrest. I think throughout the last few minutes, as you put a great amount of thought and time into doing your response, I believe throughout that whole process, Mr. British might have been sitting there with his thumb up his ass and just, I don't know, gazing at his own navel. That's frustrating, man. That's frustrating.
It's bizarre.
You know? I know.
It is bizarre.
Anything else you want to say to this person before we drop him?
Yeah, just I mean, like what it gets me like, because like this I like the fact that this guy said that he's a Muslim at the beginning of the call, because I really want people to see, because I get a lot of comments from people saying like, oh, well, you don't talk the same way about Muslims as you do as Christians. No, like I want you to see that like the thought process is the exact fucking same. The arguments that we get from two crowds are the fucking same. One's got a magic carpenter from Bethlehem, one's got a magic pedophile from Mecca. And other than that, the exact same jokes, the exact same arguments, the exact same bullshit. I don't get it, dude. Like it's literally, why are you upset over word? Why do you use words? That's it's the Matt Powell argument of like, well, if you say it's natural selection, then someone must be selecting something. That's otherwise, why would you use the word? That's the argument. And like, you don't get why we would have an issue with some guy like we didn't even like really hound the guy about the word trans.
Not really.
We just talked about it, and then we moved on to the next thing, and then the dude couldn't find a brain to answer a yes or no question. So like, that was the call, and you got so hung up on that you had to call in and give us this fucking weird ass like roundabout thing about why are you using words, and just to get to the point where you're like, well, he can say trans. It's like, yeah, nobody fucking said he couldn't. You just weren't paying attention, and you made an argument out of nothing, out of a problem that didn't exist, and now you've wasted 18 minutes of your time, and we're making money off of it. You are supporting the atheist cause by being so fucking boring, and I don't get how you don't see that, dude.
Yeah. But I do appreciate you hanging on throughout that whole time there, Mr. British, because I really wanted to make sure we didn't let you go before you heard it. But now that you have, thank you so much. And, I don't know. I guess call back sometime.
Or don't. Or fucking don't.
Yeah, seriously, it's fine. We'll be okay.
Read a different book and then call back.
Like, could you imagine, just like real quick, you guys, could you imagine if in person, like the three of us were having this conversation that just occurred, and then like after you going through this like intense 5 minutes of like breaking everything down and like highlighting the nuances and giving good explanations and so forth, and the person just responds with you like, yeah, but I think you talking to that guy 10 minutes ago was an issue. You'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, are you okay, man? Like, are you having a stroke? Like,
it's so weird. It's so deeply weird.
I know, right? It's crazy. It's crazy.
Also, I'm looking at this person in the chat right now who's in here to spam that Jesus is coming back. Call in. Yeah, the number's on the bottom of the screen.
I don't know why
you can keep saying nothing in chat. Weird. And getting your shit banned over and over because our mods are the closest thing to a god you're ever going to experience. Or you could actually call us and have a conversation. Again, if you're right, you could convince lots of people on this show. Lots of people watch this show.
Try that. It makes no sense to me. I've never understood. When I was a believer, I was just super fine with telling everybody all the time. It's like, you should totally come to Jesus because like he's fucking great. So I don't know why. And it could be.
You wouldn't want to talk. Yeah.
I'm sure it isn't this, but like maybe it's because these people that do the like keyboard proselytizing thing in the chat, they know that their arguments suck, and they know that if they talk to us, they would be, they'd look kind of dumb, and I don't know. I don't know that that's the case. It might not be, it might not be.
Bizarre.
I
learned the word symptomless may or may not exist today. Never heard that.
Come on, seriously though. Again, like, dude, that whole fucking time and all you do is Google that fucking word. Like, that's crazy, man. That's just so. But yeah, you saw it. You saw it here, folks. Atheism destroyed because symptomless may.
Symptomless is actually there it is on dictionary.com.
Okay. All right, there we go. Look,
it is a less common word for asymptomatic.
Yeah.
And there you go.
What should we now be like theistless?
I think Jesus might be real because this might be real because fucking symptomless is a word. Just the weirdest hill to die on. Yeah. So weird.
Strange stuff, guys. Strange stuff. But we are not done yet, folks, because a couple of things. One, I got to remind you that right now below this beautiful video, there is a donation link. You can click that link and send us some of your cash and your monies and your moolahs and all the other fun words for it, because you can help us with this awesome bat cruise that myself and Forrest are going to be at. We're going to be out there staring at bats on the water. And other things too. I'm sure there's other things to look at than just bats. But also, you can come hang out in the Discord after show. I will be there hanging out. Unfortunately, Forrest will not be. He is a very busy man. But myself and Kelly Laughlin will be there hanging, laughing, and looking up words. I don't know what the fuck we're going to do. Maybe we'll pull out a thesaurus.
So I was going to say.
Yeah. We have no idea. Could go anywhere, guys. Who knows? We'll just look up words and be like, yeah, is this word appropriating that word? I just
Did you hear I once ate a book about synonyms? It gave me the sorest throat.
Oh damn.
Smash that subscribe button for more great content.
We started off with parasites. We're ending at puns. I love it.
Oh, man.
We are going to head out to South Carolina. We're going to talk with Mike, no pronouns given. You have a question for Forrest, and yeah, you are chatting with Forrest and SR. What's your question?
Good day to you, sir.
Hey, I got a question for you, but I just want a quick review. Symptomless is a word. That's for real.
Yep.
I gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah, no, we checked. And it also shares the root word of symptom, which means if you are symptomless, you actually do have symptoms, because that apparently is how words work now.
All right. And this is on you guys. I heard a Backstreet Boys song where they said fantastical, and I go, that's so stupid. That's the word too.
Yeah, and funnily is a word, and I think that's a really weird word, but it is bizarre. A word. It is, right? But funnily enough, it's real. And, you know, what are you going to do? English is crazy. But what you got for us, Mike?
Hey, I was going to ask you a question about the first caller, but I just caught part of it. But then, Mr. Secular Rarity, you brought up something. You said you were, I mean, in a minute or less, can you say why you were a Christian and now you're not? Can you just fill us in?
Yeah, just like on my deconversion. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. I mean, briefly.
Mine was pretty simple. So even though I never would have used the term presuppositionalist because that didn't mean anything to me, I was ultimately at the end of the day a presuppositionalist. I was somebody that would gladly have the conversation with anybody. The issue was if you weren't starting with the assumption that God was real and all of these things were true, then the conversation didn't go anywhere with me. Once I got to the point of realizing that that is a flawed methodology for coming to truth, and that our axioms and presuppositions should be very rigorously chosen as opposed to just, oh yeah, fuck it. Then that was when I stopped believing. So basically my whole life, it was like, well, yeah, of course God is real because yeah, of course God is real. And then when it was finally demonstrated to me that that line of thinking is not an effective way to come to right answers, I stopped thinking it.
Mm.
So you like grew up with it or something?
Yeah, I was raised in Christianity, but my story is a little different. I chose to be a Christian at the age of 8. I made a very conscious choice. I was supposed to be baptized as a newborn, but because I came down with a very weird illness and was in the NICU for a few months, I wasn't able to be baptized. It wasn't until I was 8 years old that I chose to walk down the aisle as a Methodist and be baptized. It was a really big deal in my community because all the Methodists were baptized as babies. I then went through confirmation in that church as well. So, yeah, like I was actively involved in it. It wasn't just, oh, I was raised with it and I just took it on. Like I was a very deep believer, even if I wasn't like a preacher's kid or didn't participate in like choir or anything. I played music. I played handbells. That was really fun. I miss that. But
hell yeah, handbells.
Dude, they're awesome, man. But
I went to Methodist church. Yeah, handbells are big.
Yeah, right? They're badass.
So you just grew out of it because you didn't really have a basis for it, and then you're like, wow, this.
No, I don't think that's a good understanding. So I very much hardcore accepted the claims. It was just that the methodology that I used for that was counter to the methodology that I used for everything else in my life. When it came to the claims about God and that belief, I was, again, even though I wouldn't have accepted this terminology at the time, I wouldn't have used it, but I was a presuppositionalist. I was one of those people who currently, when you hear discussing this stuff online and in person and so forth, they just go, well, you have to start with God exists, otherwise you can't have logic itself. That's where my thought process was. And when it was demonstrated to me that that is not an effective method for coming to truth, and it's not the method that I use in every other aspect of my life, that was when I stopped accepting those things. So it wasn't that like I didn't really have a faith or anything. I was very much a believer. At the age of like 5, I spent many, many nights crying, praying to God, asking why he didn't speak to me. And it was, I ultimately came to the conclusion that it was because I wasn't baptized as a baby.
Yeah.
So.
Which is true.
Yeah,
that's how it is. That's what
probably,
happens.
yeah. Once you sprinkle the water on the forehead, then all of a sudden you get the radio signals. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I don't think so, but hey, the reason I asked him, Forrest, I'd like to ask you the same question real quick, just briefly. I find it very interesting. Like Ricky Gervais, he had a thing about he believed in God until one day his mom said, "Oh, you have to follow Jesus," because it just came down to Jesus was a babysitter in their family, and
yeah, I've heard that bit. Yeah,
youngest. And,
yeah, it's like the elf on the shelf, but forever. Yeah,
I mean, none of that. Yeah. Forrest, you care to share anything or no? Or I'll just ask my question.
Yeah, totally. So I didn't actually have like a traditional religious upbringing. My mom taught me. So my family was split up, and I was passed around between 2 parents and a grandparent quite a bit. And so I got like these different kind of things. We were also very poor, which brings a lot of multiculturalism with it. We went to every church, synagogue, cathedral, mosque, temple. We went to the Hindu temple and the Buddhist temple and all over the place. Cultural festivals, we found that stuff to be really important in our family. I still do today. And so I was surrounded by a variety of different religions. My mom herself was pagan. So she taught me to believe in like, you can draw a pentagram on the ground and burn some herbs and say some words in Latin and you'll have good luck for the week and cast the spirits out of your house. And you can heal people with your energy fields and things. My grandma was some sort of half-assed Buddhist. She was like, had like a Lutheran idea of God, but didn't really care and kind of did her thing. It was weird. And then my dad was Catholic. I don't know how that happened. But it's just how he grew up, and he was always preaching like a very biblical kind of God towards me, which I was not a fan of. And so I had this kind of variety of religions as a kid. My grandma was an English teacher, so she would read the Bible, the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, Norse mythology, Greek mythology, Egyptian mythology, Native American mythology. She would read all these things to me as a kid. And so like the first time I remember in 4th grade, somebody asked me if I believe in God, and I was like, which one? I didn't understand. Because I was surrounded by so many. And so I kind of had a vibe that there was like all these different ideas out there. And I had kind of a quasi funkadelic spiritual relationship with what I thought a God was for a while. But then at a certain point in my life, I just started applying the same rules of logic and reason and morality to those beliefs that I did to literally anything else ever. And I realized that, like, whereas in normal life, when I learned something cool about science or I learned something cool about the country or about politics or whatever, I would want to have some evidence for that. And I'd want to like really reason it out and think about it and like ask questions. I didn't do that when it came to whether or not I believed that my grandfather's spirit was in the room with me watching me. And like because I was taught to believe that was real. And so the second I started using the same questioning and the same rules for my magical beliefs as I did for anything else ever forever, they fell apart instantly. And then I started seeing what harm religion does to individuals and to societies. And I started becoming more active, being an outspoken atheist rather than just kind of not caring casually. I then started saying, okay, this is actually something that's really causing a lot of damage. It's corrosive to individuals and to societies and civilization. So like, that's when I started becoming an atheist activist and like really learning how horrible religion is and started doing shows like this.
Yeah. Yep. A lot of that is real similar for me too.
Dawkins that said he'd rather. I'm sorry, what was that?
No, go ahead, Mike. I was just saying a lot of what Forrest was saying, especially about getting involved with activism and stuff, is very true for me too. There's a period of time where I just wasn't that, invested in it. And then it was like, oh no, I see the problems this stuff actually, perpetuates. So,
yeah.
But yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Well, yeah, when you talk about religion, how do I say this? I grew up Methodist and Lutheran and became an atheist, and then I became a Christian. But there's not a lot of real Christians in Methodist, Lutheran, Catholic. Can I say that?
And I'm sure they would say the same thing about you.
Yeah.
No. I mean, there's authentic Christians from all different religions. I guess you could call them non-denominational. They're just following Jesus. And
yeah, but what does it mean to follow Jesus, though, Mike? What does it mean to follow Jesus? Does it mean that you should, I don't know, actively abandon all of your family members to do everything in your life to live out his message exactly? Because he said to do that. Does it mean to give up all your possessions and live in poverty and squalor so as to help those less fortunate than you? I see you must still have some type of telephone communication since you called us. If you called us on the web, you have even more things to be giving up. Should you be cursing fig trees or letting slaves know that they should be obeying their masters? I don't know what it means to really follow Jesus, man. And so who's an authentic Christian and who isn't, right? There's no way to know.
Yeah. Well, it's just, in a nutshell, it's people that have made it's like getting married. You either are a Christian or you aren't. And you're either pregnant or you're not. So
yeah, I agree with true dichotomies, but I think the problem is when it comes to married or not married, right? There's a very specific set of criteria, and it's not exactly the same all over the world, right? But at the end of the day, there are these bullet points that it's hey, you got to stick to this. Now you might think to yourself, well, hey, SR, the very basic of being a Christian is that you believe Jesus Christ is the Son of God. But of course, that's not true, because there are groups of people out there who don't exactly believe that, but they do read the New Testament and they do follow the supposed teachings and sayings that were presented many years ago. So I think when it comes to trying to say these people are authentic believers or they're not authentic believers, I don't know that you can really make that distinction other than somebody clearly doing and saying things that are outright contradictory and hypocritical. If Forrest came up to me and was like, hey man, I don't believe in God. And then Forrest was regularly praying 5 times a day facing Mecca and constantly saying Alhamdulillah and other things like that. I'd be like, hey man, maybe, just maybe, you aren't an atheist, Yeah. Right. So I don't know, man. And that none of this is even what you called about, to be honest. Do you want to talk about? Do you want to go back to? Yeah. Do you want to talk about the question that you have? I won't even say it yet because I'll let you present it to Forrest if you want to go back to that, which I appreciate since we did the call screening for that. Do you want to ask Forrest your question?
We could talk for hours about. Yeah, we'll talk about the original question to be true to that. That would be fantastical.
Sweet.
My question was, as I'm curious, is it true that it seems atheists are very, all genders are fluid and all? Am I generalizing? Because
you are.
I don't understand why atheists
you
care
are
about genders or anything. Am I? Because you guys are all
you are generalizing. There are definitely quite a lot of atheists out there that proudly take the label of being homophobic or transphobic. There are also a lot of atheists out there who don't take that label, but very much engage in that way. And they aren't interested in hearing any other information or changing their minds. I think probably it's fair to say the majority of people who take the label atheist tend to be more on that liberal left side of the social political spectrum thing. But yeah, I mean, for sure, there's, again, the atheist 2 doors down from me, does not believe the same things I do, and maybe a transphobe, maybe a super supportive ally, maybe trans themselves, maybe trans and transphobic. All of those things are possible because we're all just mixed up people, But I mean, I can tell you why I, on a personal level, care about gender identity, because it's kind of the same reason that I care about national origin or sexual identity and all these other things. And really the biggest reason that I care is because there are a lot of really shitty, hateful people that really, really hardcore care, to the point that they will actively pass laws to make human beings illegal for those things. And they will actively engage in rhetoric or activities that outright cause harm. I mean, if all of the homophobic, transphobic, asshole people out there that are like, you know what, I want to just get rid of all the LGBTQ. If those people completely stopped existing, I really feel like I probably wouldn't spend as much time focused on gender identity or sexuality or any of that shit. Like, can a trans woman run in a track and field event?
Can she go to the bathroom?
Can she go to the bathroom somewhere? Yeah, like funnily enough, that question's not really going to be a big deal if everybody's like, oh yeah, trans people are people, right? Like we're all cool with people are people, right? Everything's good, right? So yeah, that's kind of the big reason I care. If people stop giving a shit about trying to, push their God down my throat, probably wouldn't talk about atheism as much either, just to be honest. There are other fun things to talk about.
Talking about homophobic, when you're talking about homophobic and people that are making the lives miserable for these trans people and whatnot, are you talking about Muslims or who are you talking about?
Well, it depends. Not all Muslims. I mean, that'd be a massive generalization. I think Islam is homophobic. I think Islam is very clear, the religion itself, just like I think Christianity falls into that boat, right? But Christians and Muslims are separate from the ideology. They're people. And I really love the statement, and I definitely wasn't the first person to say it, but Muslims are better than Islam. Christians are better than Christianity. In fact, I would be willing to say probably 99% of the believers out there of any religion are better than their religion. And so, yeah, again, like definitely not all Muslims. I personally know some Muslims that are super, super supportive. I'm not sure how they square that with the Quran exactly, but I'm glad that
the same way Christians square it with the Bible. It's
exactly. Like, again, I still think, hey, that's not really what the text says, but I'm glad that you're on that side because I think that's very much the right side. But yeah, I think there are atheists out there that are actively making the world worse for trans people. Absolutely, man. So, just as trans people are people and they have all of these different, aspects to them and whatnot. Same with every other group, man. And that means that there are some people that are cool and they're great people and they make the world a better place. And then some people are actively dragging us back 1,000 years. So
a lot of them. That's why we're here.
Yeah. But is that do you feel like that makes sense? Is that fair?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's some generalization going on. It's like, well, there's some sort of an oppression going on against trans people, and it sounds like it's well beyond. Muslims have the laws against trans people and everything else, and
Christianity is too. Again,
to point out, So does Christianity, and if you're talking about like actual laws in actual countries, so did Christians when they had that kind of power. So like.
And again, you're
not just Muslims doing it.
There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of different categories that are being, lumped together. It's worth taking the time to separate those categories. Again, Muslims right? Just Muslims in general versus Islam versus Muslims in a political position of authority to pass laws versus the individuals who are Muslims who enforce all of these different groups. It's important to separate them, right? Because they are different. And so again, like Muslims have laws. That's not the, some Muslim majority countries, right? Some politically Muslim countries, Islam itself, some Muslims in authority. Absolutely. But again, like, there's atheists that are just the same. There are Christians that are just the same. And at the end of the day, for me, whatever your identity is, whatever your belief is, or lack thereof, wherever you come from, if you are on the side of being like, I really care about gender identity so that I can be an asshole to those people, then I am not on your side. And I'm going to keep talking about gender identity until you are so fucking fed up with it that you just stop making lives worse for people, Like, right. So I hope all of that answers. Forrest, did you have anything else you wanted to throw out, man?
I think you hit everything there. It's the same reason why I'm not out here complaining about, like Jim Crow laws. It's because those have passed. I can talk about the effects of them. I can talk about like the historical scars of them. I can talk about the issues that people of color in this country still have today. That's really important. But that one particular issue is not something that I'm currently protesting because that one particular issue isn't happening at this point. And so like, it's the same thing here with if trans people and intersex people and just LGBTQIA plus people in general all had the same rights and privileges and dignity that everybody else had, and there wasn't like this massive political movement to try to make life worse for just this one tiny part of the population because it doesn't fit into your bullshit like a worldview that's been just slaughtering its way across the world for the past however many years. If that wasn't the case, I wouldn't be talking about it as much. I would talk about the history of it. I'd talk about the way that it still affects people today and like the scars of it. I'd talk about all that stuff's really important. But it's not. The reason we care about it is because trans people are people, and they deserve to have somebody stick up for them. And if you or anybody else watching this, if you have a trans friend and you're not willing to go to the bat for them, if you're not willing to stick up for them, if you're not willing to advocate for them, if you're not willing to vote against politicians who are trying to hurt them and speak up against policies that are hurting them and fight for their rights to exist with dignity and compassion, if you're not doing all of those things, I would argue you don't have a trans friend. You just know a trans person. And there's a big fucking difference. And so like, that's what we're doing here is that like, even if I didn't have people in my life that are trans that I cared about, I still care about people, and I want people to be treated with dignity and respect and have equal rights. It's like, that's what we're here for.
Right. Because
does that make sense?
The logic is on that side. The science is on that side. The humanity is on that side, brother. So that's always the side I am very proud to say with my chest, even if sometimes the bigots won't be as open as well. And I don't think you are, Mike. I think this was a really great call, brother. So please do give us a call back in the future. And let's keep talking, man. Because if this is an indication of how other calls will go, Mike, I think we will always have good things to talk about, man. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. We had a mix today, didn't we, Forrest? Some good calls, some not so good calls. But,
can I also just right
please,
here before we wrap things up, I just want to point out to the inevitable commenters who are going to comment on this show and talk about why is this? I thought this show was about atheism. Why are we talking stuff about trans people and genders? Because we get them all the time. I dare you to go back like a few years and look at the history of ACA shows and how much they defended gay rights and same-sex marriage and things. And you didn't have a problem with it. It's just this is a new topic that's politically salient, and we're using the same thought process of secular humanism and morality and dignity to apply to a new group. And now all of a sudden you have an issue with it. Maybe you need to look inside yourself and see why that rubs you such a wrong way. Maybe it's you, not us, because we're being consistent.
Yeah, it's a you thing, maybe.
You're being weird. It's very strange. Just want to
No,
throw that out there.
No, I'm very glad you did. I think that's very important. And if you are one of those future commenters, why not just call the show next time? You know,
call the fucking show.
Yeah, here we are. We're ready to talk. So
I just live here. I just wake up and the camera's on.
They don't let us leave. Right. They don't let us leave. That's why you always read the fine print.
Yes.
But seriously, dude, Forrest, I love doing shows with you, brother. It is so much fun. We
Amigo
always
mio,
it's enjoyable, it's informative, and you just, god damn it, you just say things well. Is there a place that somebody could like just get a Forrest overload? Like if they wanted to just spend the next 2 years of their life just living, breathing, sleeping, eating, watching, listening. I'm trying to think of other gerunds I don't have anymore. So where can they find all your stuff, brother?
If someone is feeling that way, they should call a doctor. But like if at the end of the day you want to check my stuff out, you can find me on them internets. I'm right here on YouTube. You can just Google my name or look for youtube.com/@RenegadeScienceTeacher, which is a name that I coined back when I was I teach here in Oklahoma, and I would get a bunch of hate for teaching things like evolution. So I was like, I'm going to be the fucking renegade, teach real science. And now it turns out I can just go to the internet and I don't have to use such a moniker. I don't know, man. But yeah, find me here on the YouTubes. You can go to valkailabs.com and you can find me on all the other platforms if you'd like as well. I'm about to release a really cool charity stream called Roll for Initiative. We're raising money for Doctors Without Borders. I'm very excited about that. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, dude, just find me online. Find me on call-in shows like this and on Skep Talk and the Sunday Show and Talk Heathen. And I've been on Secular Sexuality a couple of times and I've been on the Hang Up a couple of times. If you want any of the call-in shows, I've probably stunk up the place. And so you can go find me on there.
You stink it up so that nobody notices my stink, which is it works out for me. I'll take it. But
that's what friends are for.
If you want to get some of that in-person stank of Forrest, Valkai, and Secular Rarity, there's a way to do it by hanging out with us. That was terrible. That was a bad
I've never hated a promotion more in my life. Keep going. Don't stop now. It's too late. You're already in it.
August 24th is the annual Bat Cruise fundraiser for the ACA. You can get your tickets right now at tiny.cc/batcruise. Right below the chat, you can donate to the direct fundraiser to help offset the travel, lodging, and cleaning up all that stank costs for Forrest and I and all the others.
That'd be great.
Don't forget, the question of the week is, what's a good comeback? What's a good comeback for You Need Jesus? And I think at this point, because I'm having trouble breathing, I'm just going to say we will see you guys next Sunday, 4:30 p.m. Central Time. Until then, have a good, happy Mother's Day. We'll see you.
Goodbye.
What will it take for you to start opening your eyes, to start questioning the bullshit and
that good stank? That's what we give them. That good stank.
Setting up your business, what goes on between my thighs. I wonder when we'll be rid of your lies.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.